Are they even looking at the data that they get, and are they asking the right questions?
Not only that, are they looking at it, but how fast are they reacting to it? That's the key to the game. If you are on top of it and you are agile and you can, oh, I see this trend, they want this, and I can produce that and move it into the market, my competitors aren't seeing my data. The data is gold. The data is the competitive advantage.
Welcome to Season 5 of Manage Self, Lead Others with host Nina Sunday. This season, we're going deeper into AI, innovation, and the invisible patterns that shape how we lead. Each episode, bold thinkers join us to explore how to lead with intention, elevate team culture, and stay future ready. The future of leadership starts with the questions we ask.
My guest today is a fan favourite. He's been on many Manage Self, Lead Others episodes before, always delivers a lot of actionable advice and learnings. Dan Silberberg has sat in the CEO chair, steered companies through shifting markets, and built a career as a master strategist. His company is Entelechy.ai. Now he's aiming that strategist's mind at the AI frontier. In this episode, Dan Silberberg explores how AI is rewriting the rules of strategy for leaders at the top. Dan reinvents Richard Koch's STAR principle, questions whether organisations can keep pace, and asks the question every enterprise should fear: are you agile enough to survive what's coming in an AI-driven world? Well, welcome, Dan Silberberg.
Thanks, Nina. It's great to see you again. And I understand that after having read your book, that you are now on Amazon. And how are you doing?
Well, it published a couple of weeks ago, and I'm excited to say that in both the USA Amazon and Australia Amazon, we are in the top 100 for our category and going up the list. Like I think we're at position 12 in the US and position 2 in Australia in organizational psychology. And it's pretty exciting.
Well, awesome. I know it was a lot of work, so I hope for your audience that they will go and buy a copy.
Today, we're going to talk about the STAR Principle 2.0, Richard Koch's book, The STAR Principle. And I want to tell you, Dan, I reference his first book, 80-20 Principle. Every time I deliver anything on productivity and prioritization, I always mention the 80-20 Principle. Where do you want to start?
So I want to start in 1979, and Michael Porter, who came out of Harvard, did an HBR article, and it was called The Porter Model and the Five Forces. So what he was arguing was to take a look at your competitive rivalry. How many people were in your industry? How many people were in your sector? What was the intensity level of competition? So if you were one or two in a market, then you had what they called dominance. That's what Richard was talking about in the STAR principle, that if you were number one, you would be dominant in your market. If you're dominant in your market, then you have consumer power, you spend less on marketing, you have all this different power that, so when you look at Google search and they've got 90% of the market, that would be an example, right, of competitive rivalry where all these other Bing and DuckDuckGo and all of these never really got far. When you look at the phone business, right, you had AT&T literally had a monopoly. So when it looked at that, when you looked at the car business, there were only 3 brands before globalization. Then you would look at the threat of new entrants. So you might want to look at an industry and say there's such a high cost of capital expenditure that it would make it, if I had that kind of money, I would dominate that market because it wouldn't be easy for new businesses to come in, right? So then you look at the bargaining power of suppliers. So if I'm putting a car together or I'm putting any kind of a product together, how many suppliers are there? So when we look at electric vehicles, if China's the only battery company, right, that has 80% of the market, then that's a good business, right? Because there aren't a lot of substitutes in the market. Then you looked at the bargaining power of the buyer, and the buyer would look and say, how many places could I go and buy the material that I need? If I couldn't find what I wanted, could I substitute something in for it? If I could do that, that would diminish then the power of the supplier. And then the last question would be, what's the threat of a substitute? So if we looked at the food business, right, we had all of the major brands in America. We had Kraft and we had Procter and Gamble. And then all of a sudden, the grocery stores decided they were going to do their own private label. So now private label went from 0 to almost 30%. Every time there was a recession, private label would grow. And eventually, private label got to the point where they were equal in quality, if not better in certain cases.
Okay, so we've got the star, then we've got the substitute that right. Then competes with the star, and then the star that was high growth and really ahead of the market can actually start to lose market share as the substitute takes over. Okay.
Right. So you had Tide detergent, right? And that was the big laundry detergent. Well, then all of a sudden, there were laundry detergents that were more eco-friendly without the chemicals.
That's right.
And the market started to shift. If we go back to 1979, we were in a period of company dominance. We were in a period that was what I'm going to call traditional, where you had more control. The consumer was a mass market. So you had a very big market to play in. You won based on your positioning and your market power. So when Procter and Gamble had 30 different brands and they went to the grocery store, they had a lot more power than somebody who only came with one product. We used to have 5-year plans and 10-year plans. Today, we're lucky if 5 minutes works. Right? At the speed of acceleration. Companies won based off of their IP and their fixed assets. So Coca-Cola, for example, had all these distribution centers. Amazon has all these distribution centers. So that is a core. FedEx, Walmart. These were dominant supply chains. But we're looking at a company in Star 1.0. In Star 2.0, we're looking at an ecosystem.
Yes, and this is from the eBook that we'll be talking about in a future episode, creating the ecosystem. Yeah.
Right. So the next thing we'll talk about later down the road is the Uncopyable Enterprise. And how do you create new markets and new ways of being in a market where people can't copy you and you can thrive?
Yeah.
But you're not going to thrive in the old system. So already within the next 8 years, the prediction is that 50% of the Fortune 500 would be bankrupt and out of business. That's a very short period of time for an enormous amount of destruction and erosion. And so when we look at 1979, we remember General Electric and Jack Welch saying you need to be number 1 or 2 in your market. And then everybody thought they needed to be number 1 or 2. In Star 1.0, you were talking about the enterprise, your business, Procter and Gamble, the Ford Motor Company, pick an area. Now in Star 2.0, we're not talking about the company and the enterprise. We're talking about the ecosystem. Who are all of the partners that play in a garden that's much harder to duplicate?
There's service businesses that make ecosystem more possible. I'm thinking with manufacturing, don't you need a concentration of effort in a location in order to achieve a product that you physically move somewhere?
The ecosystem idea is who are all of the partners. So you might have outside consultants, you might have outside marketing help, you might have outside social media, you might have supply chain vendors, but everybody now is in this walled garden. They're not all captive to one company. And so we're going to get to the intelligence in an enterprise in Star 1.0, the intelligence was static.
Yes.
It came in, you would look at it, then you would produce something. Today, the speed that data comes is now what I'm going to call adaptive intelligence. How quickly can the data come in, end the loop, see what you're supposed to be doing, and now innovate back into the market rapidly? So agility and resilience are much more important than static dominance. Amazon's getting data every second of the day. People who bought this also bought this. The bookstore has no idea what else you bought. All it knows is it rang a book up.
Now, as far as I can remember, Koch talked about when a star started to lose traction, that it became a cash cow. Once it drops below cash cow, then it goes to dog. Is that right?
Well, right. And what happens with the cash cow, it's been great because of all the money and revenue that it generated. But what happens when you keep the cash cow and it's now on a downward trajectory, you don't have more investment for the new thing as quickly because you're still maintaining it.
You actually you don't wait until you need a new product. You start working on the new product while things are still good.
Right. And now with the data coming in as quick as it does, your innovation should be agile and it should be happening over and over and over and over.
Yes.
So you still might have a cash cow.
Yeah.
So Microsoft and Amazon have the cloud business. Those are cash cows. They're going to be stable for a long time.
Yeah.
So in Star 1.0, we were looking for high growth companies. And Richard would basically say a high growth would be 10%. I'm saying high growth market today is 30%.
Right.
It's an order of magnitude and it is more exponential. Look at how fast ChatGPT got to 100 million users. It was literally like that. Both 1.0 and 2.0 want you to be number one in market share. But the number one share was a static market. So if you look at toothpaste or laundry detergent, these are not high growth markets. Now what we're looking at is real time changes the game dramatically. So look at Netflix, look at mobile telephones. So AT&T was a Richard 1.0. It was a monopoly. It was static. Its core capability was its IP. But when mobile came out, you couldn't just add mobile architecture to the legacy system. And this is where the key difference is. You had Blockbuster, and then you had Netflix. Blockbuster, brick and mortar, go pick up a tape. All of a sudden, Netflix, you're streaming. The reason I believe that so many of the Fortune 500 are in trouble, you can't Band-Aid a legacy business. This is my feeling. It's a whole new architecture. So when you look at traditional companies, they grow their internal revenue. They can innovate new product themselves, which they rarely do. And most of them acquire other businesses, which they then call accretive to earnings. In other words, I buy this revenue with this profit, I bring it into my company, and now I've maybe increase my revenue by 25%, and now my earnings also are going up.
Oh.
So so traditional legacy companies are risk averse. They're not agile in terms of innovation. Don't make waves, don't make too much of a mistake. But it's the hierarchical system that is what is not going to play in this new world that we're in.
So therefore, embedding innovation as a standard operating thread or theme in any company is not only a like to do, it's a must do these days. Would that be right?
Right, because you're getting new data every second of the day.
Yeah.
So you're going to get all the data, and then you're not going to do anything with it. You're going to lose the customer because the customer. So in Star 1.0, it was all we think about is ourselves, the enterprise. We go from us outside. In the new world of 2.0, it's outside, inside. The customer is the player. The customer tells us. The customer is giving us all this feedback.
Right.
And if we're smart, we're playing into it. And the more we give them from the data that we learn, the higher the retention rate, the more they engage with us, the more they see us as a friend, right? So in traditional companies, we weren't friends. In this new world, which we'll talk about, there's a whole different idea of how to connect with the customer.
So if we can try and identify some key actions that any company listening to this needs to make sure. So number one, it's making sure they're actually getting the right metrics. I mean, are they even looking at the data that they get, and are they asking the right questions?
Not only that, are they looking at it, but how fast are they reacting to it?
Yeah.
That's the key to the game.
Mm-hmm.
If you are on top of it and you are agile and you can, oh, I see this trend, they want this, and I can produce that and move it into the market, my competitors aren't seeing my data. The data is gold. The data is the competitive advantage. So much more competitive advantage in the collective intelligence of an ecosystem than there is in a static enterprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even it was a Peter Senge. It was the learning organization. They've been talking about speed of learning for a few decades now, but a few companies still need to take that message to heart. I'm in L&D, so I know some people are very slow to even up-level their people.
Right. You have a network, not an enterprise. You have a network platform, and each new person adds depth and increases value for everybody. Again, look at Amazon and all the people that are on in that network and your book, right? There are people that look at your book, then they write you the testimonials, right? And then so this is very different than a static enterprise. I think those are the things that are going to be required in a world where there is speed of disruption, there is technology innovation at a speed we really can't even adapt to at this point, the technological change, and industry boundaries have dissolved. In other words, it used to be that a gift store would have all the gift cards. Now drugstores have gift cards, dollar stores have gift cards. So there's so many different people you go into a grocery store, they have a gift card section. What's that got to do with food? So these boundaries have dissolved.
Now, Dan, you've given us a taste of the Uncopyable Enterprise, which is an eBook, and we're going to unpack that in a future episode. Is that correct?
Right.
I want to let the audience know. Watch out for this episode when it goes to air, because I've read most of this ebook, and I think it's changing my brain cells as I'm reading it. It's rewiring my brain. And I'm going to say something else. I'm really glad I've read Buckminster Fuller books because, in a sense, Dan, it helps to understand that you've created a new language, new concepts, and it truly is a masterpiece. So I can't wait to unpack that with you.
Well, thanks. Two things from Bucky Fuller. What he said is never try to make it better, try to make it obsolete. Right? And the other thing he said was environment always wins over willpower. So this is the new environment. When he did the geodesic dome, he wasn't trying to fix a house. He wanted a whole new thing to make it obsolete. And this is what I believe Star 2.0 will do. Is I do want to say to Richard Koch, thank you for Star 1. I grew up in that realm. I got to play in Enterprise where I was number one in a lot of different markets. But I want to encourage Richard to think about Star 2.0. And I hope he gets.
And Dan, do you still work with people? Do you still have a leader council? Do you still coach people? And if so, how do people find you? So, and if they were to find you, how might they work with you?
Well, if they're really good, they'd find me telepathically. But since that's not easy for most people, they can find me at dan@entelechy.ai. So Entelechy is ENTELECHY.ai. And so I'm definitely interested in working with companies who want to embrace the new world.
Absolutely. Well, it's always an honor and a privilege to spend time with you, Dan Silberberg. You are absolutely amazing.
Thank you, Nina, and continued congratulations. And I know that this podcast can only get bigger and better. So thank you.
My guest today was Dan Silberberg, whose company is Entelechy.ai. My name is Nina Sunday. I'm host of the podcast Manage Self, Lead Others. And before we close, my new book, Manage Self, Lead Others, Constructive Conversations, True Self-Leadership, and Culture You Can't Fake, is now up on Amazon, on Kindle and paperback. It's in the bestseller list in multiple categories. Grab yourself a copy and remember to go to our Substack channel as well, ninasunday.substack.com, for behind-the-scenes conversations relating to all the episodes on Manage Self, Lead Others. So until next time, bye for now.
Manage Self, Lead Others has launched the book. It's available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. Not just a collection of transcripts, Nina Sunday adds her own reflections about each guest conversation. Plus, you might like to join Nina on her Substack channel, ninasunday.substack.com, for candid, behind-the-scenes conversations with two sharp AI hosts who riff, question, and bounce around ideas sparked by the published podcast episode. And if you're looking for a conference speaker or workshop facilitator who can up-level your team in Australia or around the world, visit brainpowertraining.com.au or ninasunday.com. Until you tune in next time.